All right, welcome. On today's show, the Liberty have suffered their first loss of 2025. All credit to Caitlin Clark and the Fever, but gotta say, the game doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot in the grand scheme of the season, especially with Jonquel Jones out.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right. My name is Maria Marino. I am a guest host with The Next. I've been covering the WNBA since 2018. I was with SNY TV in New York for almost 5 years, covering the Liberty as well as UConn women's basketball. Last 2 seasons, I hosted a W betting podcast for Action Network, and that's how I met my guest for today, Dano Mataya, a WNBA expert providing betting analysis for her hoop stats. Dano, quite the game on Saturday, huh?
Oh, was a doozy. I mean, Caitlin really announced she was back, and I loved every minute of it.
Absolutely. Well, we got a lot to get into. Before we do, just a quick thank you for being an everydayer and making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So here's how this episode is going to go. We're going to start with our reactions to Liberty Fever. Then we're going to get into just the biggest threat to the Liberty this season overall, which I think is pretty indisputable. It's the Minnesota Lynx. And then we're going to end with a look ahead to New York's game against Atlanta coming up. And also their schedule to close out June, which is about to get a whole lot harder. All right. So beginning with just my main takeaway from the game, Dano, there's a lot to unpack. As you mentioned, Caitlin Clark had a performance for the ages. The Fever definitely made a statement. Really, really big win for them. But the obvious thing that you just can't ignore is Jonquel Jones was out. And Leonie Phoebish was out as well, who's another starter. So down 2 starters, Niara Sabally and Kennedy Burke in the starting lineup together. A little unusual for the Liberty. But the reason that I want to highlight Jonquel is somehow, Dano, I feel like she still doesn't get talked about enough, even though she was the finals MVP. She's been a Commissioner's Cup MVP. She's been a league MVP. It's like there's still not enough attention on what Jonquel Jones does for this team. Just a quick stat, which I'm sure you've heard before. Liberty undefeated in the regular season when she records a double-double, 27-0, which is insane. I'm pretty sure the one playoff loss I'm aware of, she got a double-double and the Liberty didn't win, was game 1 of the finals last year. And we all know that wasn't her fault. But when I look back at the first time these 2 teams met this season, which was back on May 24th, now, the Fever almost won that game. They did not. They lost by 2. But JJ in the fourth quarter came alive. 14 points in the fourth. 4 of 5 from the field, including 2 threes, a couple of clutch free throws, ends with 26 and 12 rebounds for the game. And so, look, this was a great win for the Fever, but JJ adds a completely different dimension for the Liberty.
Absolutely. And you brought up the accolades that she gets, but I mean, if you looked at the betting market specifically, the Liberty were still favored by 5, even without her. And I think the on-off numbers don't do it justice. I mean, you brought up that fourth quarter where she went bonkers, scoring at all 3 levels too. Threes, getting the free throw line, layups. I mean, she's great in the mid-range. She really is coming to herself as a complete player, and she's perfect for this roster. I do think, it's good for Sabrina in the sense to get this, basically having to carry the load. She did extremely well, put up 30 plus points, clutch threes. I mean, it was super entertaining when you have, 2 guards pulling from 5 feet behind the 3-point line, but from a complete team perspective, I think the Liberty rely very heavy on Jonquel Jones on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad you brought up Sabrina because especially in that first half, I'm like, oh, here we go, because you really had, Caitlin Clark and Sabrina Ionescu, which just a side note, I remember, I've heard Caitlin say in the past, like when asked, like, if you could compare your game to anybody, and I know Caitlin Clark's game is incredibly unique, but, she said, I would probably compare it to Sab. And I think there are quite a few similarities, Sabrina becoming that 3-point champion, 3-point shooting queen, if you will, for the W. She does have quite a bit of range. I don't think she has quite the audacity as Caitlin does in terms of pulling from deep, but she does do it quite a bit. So that is a big part of her game. And then, of course, the facilitating, which, she hasn't always had to be depended on to do the last couple of years with Courtney Vandersloot in the mix and so on and so forth. But anyway, just to see those two epic performances side by side, and Sab kind of being a little bit, the prerequisite to Caitlin Clark, if you will. That was super exciting. But the other thing that I think we need to take into account, I mentioned, look, it was an all-time performance by Clark. Clearly, she was motivated not just by this being her first game back from the quad injury. She missed 5 games. But also that I mentioned again, that first meeting with the Liberty back in May, this was kind of a revenge game in 2 ways for Caitlin Clark, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that she wants to always show out, especially on national television. I mean, which is, amazing to get this type of performance out of her and Sabrina. I mean, it was incredibly entertaining compared to some of the games that we've gotten on national television as of late. The fact that Caitlin's missing 5 games, so it's bouncing back like that, having the a chance. I mean, I don't believe they're completely out of the Commissioner's Cup. They're actually like right there in it. Could come down to a 3-way tie with Atlanta, New York, and the Fever, which is crazy. I think everybody really thought it was going to be Minnesota and New York, and then Seattle beats Minnesota. Of course, Seattle loses to the Valkyries, but still, this sets up for an awesome matchup between the Liberty, who we're discussing, and the Dream. I'm not sure how the tiebreakers are going to work, but now point differential definitely matters. So, for the Fever to get a 14-point win and get back some of that point differential they lost is great for them. But, I mean, it's not often you see the Liberty put up, 90 plus points or 88 and lose a game. So I think this is definitely the first time they've given up over 100 in a while.
Yeah, for sure. And want to essentially close the book on this game, but I just wanted to specify that, look, I'm not trying to diminish what the Fever have done, what Caitlin did. And, it was, like I said, great team win. Kelsey Mitchell played great, etc. I'm just saying that, like, that was an all-time performance. Like, if Caitlin doesn't go nuclear like that, it's obviously a whole different ballgame. And I don't want to, again, diminish what they've done. All I want to do is simply amplify just how critical Jonquel Jones is to the Liberty. You could argue she's the most important player on that team with, as you mentioned, like what she brings on both ends, just such a mismatch. And then the fact that she spreads the floor and can shoot threes is crazy too. So, Fever fans, be happy for sure. Liberty fans, no need to panic, in my opinion. But look, you talked about the Commissioner's Cup, and I'm still wondering if we're going to get a rematch of last year's Commissioner's Cup between the Liberty and the Minnesota Lynx. So in a moment, we're going to talk about just how the Libs compare to who I think is their biggest nemesis right now, the Lynx. So stay tuned for that. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. I can say from personal experience, sometimes I just don't realize how much money I spend on like random subscriptions, online shopping, all of that stuff, which is why something like Monarch Money is just super helpful to keep myself in check. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half of your first year. All right, so let's get into a little bit more of the big picture here of this WNBA season. You and I, Dano, covered the finals and talked about them pretty extensively last year. You know, epic battle coming down to, you know, the series going the distance between the Lynx and Liberty. Really could have gone either way. And so far this season, it feels like they are definitely on a collision course to be the top two teams left standing once again. I know it's still early, but you had these two teams both starting off 9-0, both getting their first losses within the last week. We talked about the Libs falling to the Fever, the Lynx also falling to the Seattle Storm. So these teams are human, but they did both have some pretty epic starts. You know, the Liberty leading far and away in point differential. I do think that's a little bit skewed considering that insane blowout win they had against Connecticut a couple weeks ago. But I guess my question to you is, I guess we'll start with how do you think these two teams compare this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're both close to, I mean, honestly, the Liberty been like the standard of excellence this entire season when healthy. I mean, they're dominating the teams they should dominate. I'm basically taking out the Fever game for this context. They're dominating the games that they should dominate. Granted, they haven't played, you know, too many tough teams. And I mean, that Aces win looks way less impressive as each day goes by with what they have. So I'm honestly couldn't be more excited for them to, you know, have this game coming up against Atlanta. And, you know, that as close as that first Fever matchup was, I think both teams had 12-point leads in that game. So, I mean, I think it could have gone a different way had Caitlin not woken up in that third quarter. So really it's gonna come down to how the Liberty balance health. But the Lynx have had, you know, spots where they do look super vulnerable. They only beat the Sun by 3 early in the season at home. We're down by as many as 12 in that game. Had spots where they're not getting the shooting from, you know, Bridget Carlton, and Courtney Williams can, you know, is very hit or miss. I think she's, you know, honestly a key to that roster. Did you lose me here? Or am I still on?
I still got you.
Oh, my whole screen went white. I'm sorry.
No worries.
I don't know why I have I have teams popping up. I'll go back to Courtney Williams. Courtney Williams has been a key for this roster. I think they really go when she's able to have a good, efficient game. And of course, you probably have one of the best, if not the best player on the planet right now, Nafisa Collier, who, you know, talked about scoring at all three levels. She probably does that more efficiently than anyone right now. And she's the reigning defensive player of the year.
Yeah.
I do hope we get this matchup in the future in the finals, and we get a best of 7 this year. But to start the year out, I mean, I'm interested to see what, you know, if anyone has impressed you more out of these two. They're very similar to me, but to me at full health, I think the Liberty have been, I mean, I've gone on record saying they look like the Avengers, just absolute domination. One of the best teams I've ever watched play basketball.
Wow, saying something. So I'm largely in agreement with you. I think going into the season, I had the power rankings. Once Liberty picked up Natasha Cloud, I had Liberty number 1, followed by the Lynx, which, funny enough, when you looked at title odds to start the season, and that wasn't always the case as far as, who, according to bookmakers, was most likely to win. Neither here nor there. But, I thought it was really interesting how the teams that probably did the least in the offseason were the teams that really didn't have to change too much, which was, Minnesota and New York. Once Minnesota made that move to then add Cloud to their backcourt, changed it a little bit, definitely improves them defensively. And I would say look, New York was a great team last year, obviously won a championship, but to me, they're far and away better this year because now you have Leonie Fibish established where, she didn't become a starter until the playoffs last postseason. And we knew at that point, you're getting way more length, you're getting more 3-point shooting. And then throwing in Cloud as well, better defensively. I've been impressed, although Cloud was quiet against the Fever, had a bit of a dud game on Saturday. I thought in general, I think it's pretty much like a universal thought that like, this is the perfect fit for her. She's perfect for the culture. Her, you can tell she's vocal, like she's just making a huge difference on this team. And so now you're, again, another year removed for Sab as well. I think Sabrina, every single year, she has improved. Every single year, she's gotten better. Like, I don't think we've seen her peak yet, and we've seen some great things from her. So they certainly have all the chemistry. Now, I think what Minnesota has is, to use the cliche term, big old chip on the shoulder, right? Yeah. You have Nafisa Collier, who you said is, I think primed to be the MVP this season. A lot of us bet her to be the MVP coming into the season. And so far she's like living up to that billing. I don't even think we've seen her peak yet, which is scary. She is just like ascending into her prime and beyond. But, that same old saying that, I hear that Cheryl Reeve, like shit was stolen from us. I hear that post-game presser after the finals last year. And they largely bring back their core and they all remember and they all are like, hey, we're not going anywhere. So I certainly think that adds a little spice to the season. And, I mentioned the Commissioner's Cup. We all know last year, Minnesota upset the Libs in that game.
Yeah, Bridget Carlton, game of a lifetime. Deserves the Commissioner Cup MVP. I really want to know who voted for Fee because I think there were only 5 votes.
I think they were on the wrong side of history, but yeah.
I know one was for Bridget, but regardless, I think Jessica Shepard's value is, similar to Natasha Cloud. In addition, that really brings a lot of value in terms of depth, in terms of both ends of the floor. They're very similar in a sense of getting better along the margins. And I talked to Jonathan Kolb in Dallas once, and Fibish was that for him last year. Like, how can we're already so good? We made it to the finals. How can we improve on the little things? And I think that's what both these teams continue to do. And that to me is an example of I feel like a lot of the league has gotten better, has improved, and you still have these teams who, the Liberty and the Lynx, who just still have a gap that may have even gotten bigger as this 25 season rolls on.
All right, Dano, I'm putting you on the spot here. Do you know the date of the Commissioner's Cup?
I don't, not at all.
Great. Glad neither of us know that. I was just going to say the first time the Liberty and Lynx are set to meet up this season isn't until July 30th. So I'm like, wait, is the Commissioner's Cup before or after that? Let's see. Oh, yep. Game is July 1st. So there's a chance we could see them meet up earlier. But as it stands, these two teams are not set to clash until the end of July. So we got a long way to go, a long way to learn about these teams, which is a little unfortunate because, again, I do think that that's going to be one of the key matchups throughout the season that's going to tell us the most. But speaking of the schedule, I do want to talk about just how the Liberty schedule is going to get considerably harder here. Starting the season, they had one of the easiest strengths of schedules. That's about to change as June rolls on. And I want to preview that upcoming matchup with Atlanta as well. So hang tight. All righty. The NBA playoffs are also in full swing. I know you've been dialed in. Every night delivering highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments, whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player. There's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. I am seeing the Pacers at about plus 420 to win the finals right now. I find that very intriguing for a team that's already proven they can win on the road in OKC. But if they were to win it all, Game 5 is, as always, super critical. They are underdogs, of course, getting 9.5 points. I would consider taking them at least to cover that spread. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. You'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right. So as mentioned, the schedule is about to get a little wonky here for New York. First things first, they got to go up against the Atlanta Dream on Tuesday. And Dano, I think Atlanta is probably better than admittedly we expected them to be so far this season.
Yeah, I think they might be the third best team in the league. I mean, they're third in terms of net rating. And I mean, that's mostly driven by their offense, which we weren't saying in years past. No disrespect to Tanisha Wright, but Carl Unescu has this team clicking on all cylinders. And I was probably critical of like, how the heck is trying not to cuss. How the heck are Brianna Jones and Brittany Griner going to work together? But like, I mean, I think you're getting incredible value out of Brianna Jones, and then what Alicia Gray has done in terms of, you know, shooting the three, getting to the free throw line, and then you have Ryan Howard who can go and tie a WNBA record on a random Friday night, you know, it's, with 9 threes. The team is definitely special. They are very scary. I've never felt that way about the Dream before.
Yeah.
And now, to me, they're ascending into that tier right below the Lynx and the Liberty. They're probably right on par with Indiana for me when Indiana's at full health. So I think the Liberty get them at home for a Commissioner Cup game, which will be critical in the standings, and then they'll have to go play the Dream, of course, on the road at the end of the season. Curious to where you have the Dream in terms of your overall rankings in your head.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to wrap my head around because, again, this is not exactly something I saw coming. Look, I respect the hell out of Brittany Griner, and I expected her, you know, to bring it. But like you, I had my reservations about, okay, how's this going to work with the sort of the double bigs? You know, Carl Unescu knew he was a really great, well-respected college coach, but, you know, never really studied sort of him in action. So, I mean, I can't argue. I mean, they are the third best team. Your record is telling you that. Your net rating is telling you that. Curious to see if Phoenix kind of figures a few things out. You know, Kalia Copper has not played yet, so that's something to monitor. Vegas, I'm kind of out on Vegas right now, which is insane to say because they still have one of the best players on the planet in Asia Wilson, but, you know, still need to prove a whole lot more. And then you already said Indiana, you know, they just taking Clark off that team. It just changes everything. Just they're barely scratching the surface. But they, even with Clark healthy, I think had some question marks too with some fit, in terms of their free agency additions. So yeah, long story short, can't argue with you. What would you predict would be the spread for Tuesday with New York and Atlanta?
Oof. I think they factor in. It depends on Jonquel, but and you factor in the Liberty after a loss have been a really good spot for them in the past. This team does take a lot of things on the chin. Like they're very prideful. It's a very prideful group. Sandy gets them up for these types of moments. So I'd probably set it at like 5.5 or 6. Think, get 3 points for being at home. Now, if Jonquel isn't playing, I'd probably move it down to 3.5 or 4. I think she's worth about 2 points of value. I don't feel super confident either way. Because I feel like the Dream have been like great in New York historically. And Brian Howard has played a lot against the Libs, and so has Alicia Gray. But I think Jonquel is a necessity for this team, especially in this matchup. And I think part of that for me is with the way that Ryan Howard and Alicia Gray have been defending the guards. We've been talking about their offense a lot, but defensively, you look at the tape on how they guarded Clark. They're in her grill. Even Mike Caldwell is a person to give some flowers to in this. They're in her grill. They're pressuring her 94 feet. You get Jordan Canada back now. The Dream are very dangerous. I'm not saying take them in this next game. I wouldn't be surprised if they pull off an upset.
You're not saying take the Liberty either.
We had a moment in the lounge the last time the Dream pulled off a major upset in New York. Down in the Qatar lounge, you and I was like, I think the Dream are winning this game. So I could see it. But yeah, I think I'd set the line if Jonquel is healthy at 6 points.
Okay, interesting. Well, along those lines, we're in a group chat together, and our good buddy Andrew O'Connor Watts with a text just a bit ago. Quote, "I know it's the Mystics, but the Dream are effing good."
Yeah.
So I just had to shout that out, as well as our group chat. So that one's going to be interesting. FYI, Jonquel Jones is day to day with that right ankle injury. So again, hard to make any hard predictions until we know what her status is going to be. But I did want to just get into the Liberty schedule here coming up briefly, because, as mentioned, it's going to get a little dicey. So they have, you talked about Atlanta Tuesday, Phoenix on Thursday at home, which again, look, there's no easy games in the W. Okay, maybe that Connecticut one a couple weeks ago or Chicago at times, but in general, everybody is super tough. But then Sunday, the 22nd, they go on the road. That starts a 4-game road trip at Seattle, at Golden State, at Phoenix, and then circling back at Atlanta again. So to me, those are all tough opponents. And this is going to be apart from the Lynx and apart from the Fever with Clark on a freaking mission, this is going to be the toughest test for the Libs, and we're going to see what they're really made of. And it's going to, we may or may not see Leo Febish back, depending on what happens with Germany in Eurobasket. So any thoughts on that? Yeah.
Mercury at home, I feel pretty good about, even though they get Khalid Copper back, expected to play, as we record this today. She's expected to play against the Aces. So, Ka's been a part of some great wins in New York. I think I remember them coming back down 16 when she was with Chicago. She spearheaded that whole thing. Have to assume she's going to be on a minutes restriction, but still the team is dangerous. They got, Satu, Alyssa Thomas, and then me as the quote unquote vice president of the held fan club.
Yeah.
I can't get enough of. I think front office of the year over there with what they've been able to get talent wise to round out that roster, and Nate Tibbetts is doing a fantastic job. That is not an easy place to play at all. They've only lost 2 games at home, one to the Lynx from that Natisha Heidemann 3. Grant Fee didn't play. And then when Seattle went nuclear in the fourth quarter with Skylar Diggins going bonkers. But that's going to be a rough road trip. And the fact that they have to end it with going to the Dream, so going back to the East Coast before going home, I hate that spot for us. I hate that spot for any team, the last leg of a 4-game road trip. And especially if you beat the Dream, they're going to be pissed off. I can see the Dream running away with that one. So I would be tremendously happy with 3-1. The Valkyries at home is very scary, apparently. I think Coach
true home court advantage for them so far.
Maybe the best fans in the league. No shade on my fellow Liberty fans, but yeah, I would be very happy with a 3-1 on that road trip. I would settle for 2-2, but 4-0 is going to be absolutely tough.
Yes, it is. So as mentioned, big gut check time for the Liberty coming up, which they haven't really faced too much of in terms of adversity so far this season. But that's going to do it for us on Locked On Women's Basketball. Huge thanks to you, Dano Mataya, for joining. There's plenty more where this came from. New episodes daily, powered by the staff at the Next. Missy Heydrich has an episode out Monday. Howard Megdal back for Tuesday's show. Definitely check those out. If you haven't already, subscribe to the Locked On Women's Basketball YouTube channel at Locked On WBB so you don't miss anything. And if you want to share your thoughts with me on what you heard today, feel free to catch me on X or Instagram at Maria C. Marino. Until next time.